Hi friends, welcome to Rise with Tech. My name is Gaurav Kumar and this is the third video. So today we will discuss about Model Context Protocol, what MCP is and what is its purpose. So this is a term which you will come across very often when working with AI assistant or developing AI apps. So without further ado, let's dive in. Model Context Protocol is an open source standard which is used by AI assistant to talk to external services. Let's take it one by one. Open source standard means there is no patent on it, so anyone can use this standard and develop their own MCP. And AI assistants are basically Claude or ChatGPT. These are the AI assistant where you type in something and you get some results. External services can be anything. For example, your email, which can be a Gmail or an Outlook or your calendar. So MCP facilitates communication between the AI assistant and the external services. So let's start from a scenario when there is no MCP. So suppose you ask your AI assistant to fetch your unread emails, but your AI assistant, in absence of MCP, doesn't know how to ask Outlook to get those details. Each of these external services, whether it is Outlook, Calendar, Dataverse, or GitHub, they have their own APIs, but AI assistant doesn't know how to talk to them, and that's where the MCP shines. So MCP provides a language for an AI assistant to talk to these external services. And how it does that? The MCP describes what are the tools available which AI can invoke. It standardizes the communication, what should be the format of that communication, and handles various other things like authentication, validation, and formatting responses. So now let's talk about the context, which is the central theme of Model Context Protocol. So all these APIs can do multiple functions, right? AI assistant need some kind of context or some kind of explanation so that it can invoke the right kind of tool, and that's what Model Context Protocol does. So an MCP server can provide three capabilities. So it's not mandatory that an MCP server will always have three capabilities, but they can have all of them or any one of them. So these can be resources, tools, and prompts. Resources are the documentation or the material for AI assistant to refer. Tools are basically actions which AI assistant can call, and the MCP server will then send a API request to its own services. And prompts are basically reusable templates, a description which provides additional context to carry out a task which has been given to an AI assistant. So we will see this in a minute, how all these three things come together and what they mean. Let's discuss the MCP architecture, which is a client server model. So I have been using the term MCP server all the time. Let's see what it means and where it fits in the context of MCP client and MCP host. So let's start from the MCP host. MCP host is your AI assistant. It can be ChatGPT, Claude Code, or Claude Desktop, or anything. An MCP client is set up by MCP host. So you can say that MCP host and MCP client are together set up at one uh, environment. So, for example, Claude has to establish a connection to Outlook MCP server. So, Claude will set up an MCP client for that Outlook, and that client will talk to an MCP server, which is again set up by an Outlook. So, the server is set up by the external service provider. Client is what is set up by a AI host when we install an MCP into our AI assistant. So that client talks to that external MCP server, and that's how this client server model works. So now let's look at an example which will make things very, very clear. So on the right hand side, there is an MCP server in green color, and on the left hand side, there is MCP client, which is in blue color. So let's start from step one. where you ask your ChatGPT or any AI assistant, Claude, that show me my unread emails. Now, this request will be taken by the AI assistant and it will send it to MCP client. And MCP client will then send a request to the MCP server saying that give me the list of tools and the description which are available. So the server will send back the list of tools. So as you can see, tools available are list emails, send emails, search email, and create calendar events. There will be description also along with each of these tools. So AI assistant will read all these descriptions and choose which one to use to get unread emails. Then on the third step, you can see the tool chosen is list emails and then unread equals to true. So then this thing, AI assistant, will tell AI MCP client to send this request list email unread equals to true to the MCP server. So this from the point number 3, you have to go to point number 1 on the MCP server side in the green color. So MCP client will send this request to MCP server. Server will receive list emails unread equals to true. Then the MCP server will convert this request into an API, which will send it to their own systems and fetch those results. So you can see in the second part, it has created an API request, and the third part, it receives back the result of that API request. In the fourth part, the MCP server will format that response and send it back to the MCP client. So you can see from the step 4 on the MCP server side, it will go back and you have to go back to the step 4 of the MCP client. So that response will be received by MCP client, which then will send it to your AI assistant, and your AI assistant will give it to you. So that's how whole communication works. So MCP servers can be of two types. One is local MCP servers, other is remote MCP server. In local MCP server, the client and the server are both hosted on the same machine. In remote, the server is hosted external to your machine and it is accessed normally by internet HTTPS protocol. What type of the MCP server will be, it will be decided by your service provider whether they want to provide a local server or a remote server. That's entirely up to them. So we will have a look at few of the MCP servers. So keep one thing in mind, that these MCP servers are essentially are a gateway to their systems. So for example, if we talk about Outlook, so the MCP server is providing a gateway to enter into their systems or GitHub or Dataverse. So not all MCPs are open source, means you cannot see inside what how the MCP has been defined or how it is structured. And not all MCPs are free, because if you are using Outlook, you have to have an Outlook account, otherwise you cannot use that MCP. So we'll have a look at few of those and see how they look like. So I checked earlier that the tools are inside this package folder. So we'll go inside package and then we will go inside GitHub. And then here you can see these all are tools. So if we open the first one, so this is the code for that tool, and it will have a name and description and more details of how to use this tool. So here you can see this is the name of the tool and this is the description. So that is a standard protocol which I was saying. Every tool will have a name and description and how that tool works. So that is how we see what's there inside this GitHub MCP. Because it is an open source, we can go inside and see. And let me show you a catalog. So this is Microsoft MCP catalog, which basically lists all the MCP servers available. And you can see here some are local and some are remote, like we covered before. And these are not open source. So if you search for email, so there is one M365 email which is a remote one, and these are not open source. So if you click here, it won't allow you to get in. So I hope you got a better idea of what MCP is and what function it performs. So thanks for hanging out with me today, and see you in the next video.